Hey, how is everybody doing today? Well, I got something I wanted to share with you. It's a common theme that I've found throughout these experiences in these recent years, especially uh, around this area. But the term or phrase, however you want to characterize it, group of words that you may have heard before is problem, reaction, solution. Now, if you've never heard of this before, I'll briefly explain it to you. And if you have, well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, problem, reaction, solution. So, the quote unquote powers that be, or people in charge, or however you want to characterize these degenerates, what they do is they create a problem, or they turn a blind eye to allow a problem to exist. Um, then what they do is they wait for a reaction from the generally from the public, from the community, and then they offer a solution. And generally speaking, these solutions that they offer are solutions that whittle away at our rights, freedoms, and liberties, and offer an opportunity for these shysters to steal from us through the color of law actions in these so-called courts, and um, just dealing with all this nonsense. So, problem, reaction, solution. So it's a common theme, like I said, in many of these situations that I've been dealing with, whether it's a municipal corporation representative, or a private corporation or private company owner, representative, operator. Uh, I'm finding that I'm coming across this same theme in many different aspects in multiple industries. And essentially, like I said, they either create or they allow to be created a problem. And they wait for the reaction, and then they offer a solution. Well, one of the biggest examples of this, one of the most obvious to me, anyways, it should be to you if you've been paying attention. Uh, the situation with the violation of the Second Amendment, the property that was stolen from me, all because I had called to complain about noise. Now, granted, it was over a long period of time that I was complaining because these incompetent public servants refused to do their jobs and, you know, follow their duty to act. Um, so they created the problem by allowing the noise to exist and to persist, to be disturbing at night, to disturb the population, the people. Uh, Now, when I and others, not just myself, but when I and others uh, complained about this to the city, because after all, it is the city, the municipal corporation's responsibility. These representatives, Donald Mason and the pecking order underneath of him, uh, they're responsible. They're liable, and they have a duty to act to address the disturbance. So they create the problem, or allow the problem to exist, loud noise at night. They ignore their responsibilities and duties, and they don't bother to uh, address the reaction appropriately. So they got the reaction, people complaining because it disturbs sleep and disturbs rest and the peace and sanctity of the community at night. Then what they provide is a solution that isn't a solution that benefits the community or uh, myself, but benefits them. And so not only in the solution, did they create a solution that they were able to make money off of by creating these fraudulent court cases and manipulating the courts to procure a certain outcome that would be in their favor, regardless of the truth, regardless of the facts. Uh, but they provide the solution, which in their eyes alleviates the problem. Me, the person, or the excuse me, I'm not a person, I'm the man complaining about the disturbing noise. Uh, and then on top of that, they steal from me. So now they have that property, and I guess they feel like they can just sell it or keep it or trade it off for weapons for themselves or something because I guess it doesn't matter to them that they steal from we the people. Um, so then on top of that, they supposedly assume that they uh, stole my right to defend myself using a gun, and which, by the way, is a violation of the Second Amendment. They don't have that right to infringe upon it whatsoever, period. And that is infringement. No matter what the semantics, no matter what they want to call it or what words they want to use, facts are facts, no matter how they change the wording or whatever. Um, just because they call it a felony doesn't mean that it constitutes that level of disparaging characterization. But they did it on purpose because they wanted a solution that benefited them. So they silence a complaining party. They remove or reduce their responsibilities in their eyes because by going through this process and creating this fraudulent procedure, going through these courts and so forth, they can then take more from me, more energy, more funds. Just there's a lot that they take and can take and throughout that process. And if you've been through that process and you're familiar with what I'm talking about, if you've paid attention, or maybe not, maybe you just said, attorney, please help me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not old enough to, or not mature enough to be responsible for myself. So if you're one of those types, then man, I feel sorry for you. But so anyways, problem, reaction, solution. So they create the problem, wait for the reaction. And then the solution, like I said, is a solution that doesn't benefit we the people or the community, but benefits the public servants and alleviates, in their eyes, their responsibilities and liabilities, their duties and obligations, and they can make money off of it. And fool the idiots in the community that think that they're heroes and that they protect the community. Another glaring example of this is the drug problem. Now, most, if not all, of these police departments, the employees that work in the police departments at various levels, most all of them tout that they combat violent drug traffickers, like that idiot sheriff from Stark County I've seen on these advertisements on YouTube, where, he doesn't like people calling police corrupt because it makes their job more difficult, or however he claimed it, however he said it, or said it in that advertisement. This is factually untrue. If you look at what's going on, not only from the southern border and the amount of illegals pouring over our southern border, but potentially into the northern border as well from Canada into our country, because the borders are not secure. There are not only illegals coming in, but these illegals are carrying in dangerous drugs, fentanyl, cocaine, all these other drugs. And then on top of that, there's plenty of evidence to show that the federal government, at various times, it's hard to say if it's been the entire time or just in, temporary periods of time here and there, where the federal government has brought in drugs to the country, brought drugs into the country, rather. Look at Afghanistan. Right after 9/11, there was all of the propaganda touting Saddam Hussein and Iraq as the major threat, the main threat, because of WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, all this garbage, which were never found, by the way. But with that being said, we didn't go into Iraq first. We went into Afghanistan first. Now, why did we go into Afghanistan, you ask? Well, that's because they had poppy fields. They were a huge producer of heroin and other products that are produced from the poppies. So, what was one of the first things that our government did after 9/11? We went into Afghanistan and secured the poppy fields. Before we went into Iraq to combat this bad terrorist Saddam Hussein and deal with these weapons of mass destruction, the first thing we did is we went and secured poppy fields. Now, that seems kind of strange, doesn't it? But when you realize that heroin is produced from the poppy, uh, you then realize that, oh, well, wait a minute, about that same time frame, heroin use became at epidemic levels, or I don't know if I said that correctly. Heroin use was at an epidemic level, if that's the right word to use, epidemic, at that time frame, roughly. Now, granted, the use of heroin and other drugs was uh, in existence prior to this. However, if you recall, if you look back on that time frame, if you've paid attention to society at all, and not just put your head in the sand like an ostrich, then you would see that, yeah, about that same time frame, heroin use started to become rampant, and it was starting to get out of control, and became out of control, or it is out of control now. It has been for a while, and then now with the fentanyl. Well, this is a problem that the governments have created. Our governments, if you want to call them that, certainly not mine. But they create this problem by allowing the drugs to be here. Then they create arbitrary so-called laws. They're not laws, they're corporate codes and policies about drug trafficking. They use these terminologies. Quite frankly, it's all assumptions that it's actually a crime, because technically they don't have the jurisdiction to technically arrest a drug dealer or a user. But they do, because these people don't realize their rights. They don't know who they are or what they are. And so they allow these tyrants to get away with it. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with heroin use and extremely dangerous drug use and that sort of thing. I've seen what it does to communities. However, let me ask you this, and think about this before you give yourself your answer. Would the problem with drug use be as bad as it is today if the police weren't playing this game of cops and robbers with the drug dealers and the users? Because see, it's residual income is what it is. Or gravy. That's another slang term to use. It's their gravy, because they can continuously go back and find these people, because they're typically in the same areas of town. They find them on the street. They detain them, arrest them, find something to arrest them or charge them with, drag them into the jail, drag them to the courts, and then make them pay fines and restitutions, make them serve jail time and all this stuff, and then they put them back on the street, and it's the revolving door back all over again. And so many of these people are just getting recycled through the system, and these courts are continually profiting from that. Not only from the fines and fees that are forced to be paid, but also the bonds that are created on the backside of these cases, the penal bonds and the performance bonds and so forth, that the court sells off in the open market for profit. That's how it works. That's how they make money. That's why they are doing what they're doing. It's problem, reaction, solution. Now, if they wanted to really combat the drug problem, then they wouldn't combat the symptoms, but they would combat or address or help the underlying issues, the root cause problems of the issues that lead to drug use, drug abuse, and so on and so forth, people destroying themselves. But they don't make extra money doing that. They don't make extra money being a good man or woman or a good person in that situation, because they are technically a person working for a corporation as a service representative. See, it doesn't pay enough for them to do that, because after all, that's the whole purpose of them being there. I mean, granted, it's supposed to be to protect and serve the community, but in reality, it's to protect themselves and profit off of the destruction they cause in the community, either directly or indirectly by their actions, by allowing the drug trade to continue to come in through the borders, at the federal level and some of these state levels where even the states are bowing down to the federal government and allowing this to continue. Granted, you hear some of the propaganda in the news that potentially states like Texas and other states may be pushing back and doing things to override the federal government and secure the border. However, it's not a coordinated effort like it should be to protect our country as a whole. It's somewhat piecemeal, and it's even though it's a step in the right direction, it's nowhere near fast enough to provide the security that we need. But also, it's just more divisiveness, divisiveness, I think is the right word. By dividing people down the middle on the topic, whether you're for border control or not, all this back and forth, and you can see so many times in our society. Another example of problem, reaction, solution. They create polarizing situations that divide the population, whether it's about race or religion or gender or whatever. There is so many different issues that are being used to polarize our society, our population, to divide us, so that way we're bickering and fighting amongst ourselves, and we can't concentrate on taking out our actual enemies. And our enemies are every day gaining more and more power over us because we don't know what the hell's going on, and most of us aren't smart enough to pay attention. However, as a caveat to that, I'm doing what I can. I'm doing my part. So whether you agree with it or not, whether you know what I'm talking about, whether it makes sense to you, I really don't care. If it doesn't, that's more of a reason why you should look into it and begin to understand it, because I had to do that so I comprehend it better. And then so that way I can share my experience with others. Now, am I a great teacher? No. I'll admit that. I'm not the best at delivering the information. There are others out there that deliver the information much better than I can. I am just simply sharing my experience to the best of my ability, articulating it to the best of my ability from my perspective, and going through these processes and procedures. So that way, if you find yourself in a situation where you realize that you have a mortgage that is fraudulent and you want to combat that, or whatever the situation might be, if it happens to be a situation similar to what I've dealt with, then hopefully you or someone else can benefit from these recordings and postings, and that's the main goal here. It's not for notoriety. It's not for me to be a celebrity. I don't care. Frankly, I would rather not do this. Frankly, I would rather get the hell away from these people and away from this state and this area as quickly as possible, and I don't know if I said it, as far away as possible. However, I can't allow myself to do that on the principle of the fact that if I walk away from this and allow them to essentially win, then I will be doing the exact same thing that so many people have done before me, that it has allowed and contributed to allow the environment that we have today in our country with this government, on whichever level, whether it's local, county, state, or federal. For the most part, they are all acting about the same, with some exceptions. There are some good ones out there, but then again, it could just be propaganda. It's really hard to say if they're actually doing things for the people, or if it's just more of the pulling of the heartstrings and trying to trigger people into getting upset and buying into these polarizing issues, rather than paying attention to the issues that we actually need to pay attention to. So if you look back on the last 2 years, that's a whole nother example of problem, reaction, solution. just think about it for a minute. I'm not going to go into all the details because I'm sure you're aware. But yeah, problem, reaction, solution. Uh, COVID, fear, masks, and poison shots being mandated, which were not laws, but people still followed for some reason. Go figure. Probably the stupidity. But yeah, just another example of problem, reaction, solution. So if you go back and listen to these examples that I'm giving in the situations that I'm going through and that I'm articulating, even with my car, problem, reaction, solution. Granted, in this situation, the power that be, quote unquote, if you will, I don't know how else to characterize it, the company owner didn't cause the problem that I had. However, there was a problem that existed. So there's a problem. I have a reaction. I need to get it fixed. I try to fix it. I can't. It's beyond my knowledge at this point. So I send it to an expert to get it fixed. Well, they create an even bigger problem. Wait for the reaction. And then they provide a solution that doesn't benefit me, the customer. It benefits them because they get paid and they don't do any of the work. And they actually cause more damage to the car than what was there before. So I end up having to fix things that weren't broken before. And on top of that, figure out why they didn't do what they were supposed to do, but they still got paid. So that's just another example. So yeah, keep that in mind. Problem, reaction, solution. Write it down, look it up, and you could probably online find many examples of this throughout our society at various levels. But then again, you got to be careful because there is a lot of misinformation online. And so anything that you come across, anything that you're told, anything that you read, you want to make sure to validate that in any way, shape, or form to make sure that it's accurate and honest and true. Because if you just take somebody's word for it and you don't have any knowledge to back up or to verify what's being said and you just go off talking about nonsense, well, it's your own fault. And, I may find myself doing that from time to time. I definitely do my best to not do that. I don't like to talk about things that I know nothing about because it's ridiculous. I'm the type of man that if I don't know about something and somebody asks me a question about it, I'm honest and I will tell them I don't know. I'll see if I can get you an answer, but at this point I don't know. So, I don't want you to think that I'm some kind of know-it-all because I'm not. But I like to learn. And especially when it comes to my safety and security, my well-being, my ability to pursue my happiness, I take it very personal and I do my best to learn everything that I need to address the situation, to fix it. So that way it's not affecting or infringing upon my ability to pursue my happiness. And keep in mind, that's as long as it's not affecting other people negatively. It's not causing harm to other people. In reality, not make-believe, not this is some assuming BS that these incompetent public servants from Zanesville do and from Muskingum County. But in reality, if someone is actually harmed, not speculated to be harmed or assumed to be harmed or, in the land of make-believe, but in reality, then, that's something that has to be addressed because then I should, if what I'm doing is actually causing harm to people, I shouldn't be allowed to do it. That's actually a crime. That's how it works. So keep these things in mind. Remember problem, reaction, solution, and think about that concept. And if you've been following along, think of these situations that I've articulated, these experiences, and think about how they fit into that formula, problem, reaction, solution. And then also with that, ponder a little bit further about how experiences in your own life fit that formula, problem, reaction, solution, whether it's in your place of employment, place of business if you're a business owner, in dealing with contractors and dealing with other companies and so forth, and dealing with customers. There's examples of this almost everywhere. So I encourage you all to, as always, know the truth and let the truth set you free. Because if you don't know the truth, whatever you believe is going to destroy you.